Anybody recognize this picture here? Yell it out. Niagara Falls. This is a postcard from Niagara Falls. What is so scandalous and shocking about this postcard is it caused my grandfather to have a massive heart attack and almost die. You want to see what's on the back, don't you? You're like, yeah, let's flip it over. I want some scoop. I'll read it to you. It says this. Hi, folks. Just finished dinner in a cafeteria across the street from the falls. We stayed last night at a motel at Geneva on the Lake, Ohio. We'll spend the day at the falls and do some shopping for souvenirs for the kids. Must look for a motel for the night before too much longer, or we'll be halfway home before we can get any sleep. Having a wonderful honeymoon. Love, Russ and Delene. You're like, where is the scandal? I don't get it. The plot thickens, honey. So check out the stamp. How much did it cost to send this postcard? 6 cents. This baby was mailed in 1969, when it had only been legal on a federal level for interracial couples to marry. Those are my parents. They sent the postcard. My father is Russ. He is black. And my mother is Delene, and she is white. And they fell in love during a time when they weren't supposed to, but they did anyway. And in all their wisdom, you know, when you fall in love, you're like, you're not so smart. But they decided to announce their nuptials on this very postcard. You see where I'm going, don't you? The recipients, the Petersons in Minneapolis, Minnesota, shout out to anybody from Minnesota here. The recipients were my grandparents. Those are my mom's parents. Lovely couple, okay? Now, we've all been dating ourselves with old references to like Cheers and the Bundys and all that. Does anybody remember Leave It to Beaver? Oh, I knew you were my people. Okay, picture Ward and June Cleaver. You got it? Those are my grandparents. I mean, they look like Ward and June Cleaver. My grandma was at the door when my grandpa came home from work in an apron, holding a martini with dinner on the table, okay? Lovely little couple. But here's the reality. They hated black people. You saw it coming, didn't you, honey? Now, they actually didn't know any real black people, but they hated them anyway because that was expected. Everybody in their social circle hated black people, so they hated black people too. Now, don't vilify my grandparents, though. Imagine what it must have been like for my grandfather to go to that mailbox, open it up, pull out this postcard, and find out his daughter married somebody that he hated. It was too much to take. He had a visceral reaction. He was disgusted. He was humiliated. I mean, what would the neighbors think? He was so shocked that he had a massive heart attack and he almost died. And it was on his almost deathbed that his minister came to him and said, if you make it through this, why don't you at least meet this man? So I'm happy to share that 6 months later, my grandfather met my father, and I want you to hear from my parents what it was like the day that they met. Let's watch. So tell me about when Grandpa met Dad for the first time.
Well, I was scared to death. I knew my dad. I knew my husband. I was scared to death that they were going to have a fist fight or try to kill each other. He got out of the car, shook his hands, and they were together for a week. And it was unbelievable. It was not the same man I grew up with. It was a beautiful thing to see, and they loved him from day one.
So when my father and my grandfather met, they connected on a human level. And here's my grandpa Dale, by the way. We adored each other, for the record. My grandpa realized that all these perceptions he had built up in his mind about what this black man would be like, he realized my dad was just a good, hardworking guy who loved his daughter. And they connected on that human level. And my grandpa made my parents promise that when they had kids, they would be intentional about exposing us to difference so we didn't grow up misinformed the way that he did. And my parents took that promise very seriously. They were intentional about exposing us to people from all different walks of life, different socioeconomic status, race, nationality, you name it. They exposed us on purpose. And as a result, it has served me really well, both in my personal life and my professional life.